If you just let me see if you can see the
Yes, we
yeah.
can see. We can
Yeah,
see
it looks
okay.
great.
Okay, so this session I initially created specifically for Power BI, but I kind of reformatted so it's the example will be in Power BI, but the concept can be applicable to any digital document. So the session is accessibility considerations in Power BI and beyond, designing for everyone. I don't think I've met you guys before. So my name is Juliana Smith. My background is actually in physical oceanography. So I started my career about 17 years ago in data science and ocean research. And since 2020, I have specialized in Power BI and user interface design. For the past about 20 months now, I have deep dive into digital accessibility, WCAG standard. I have a blog, Smart Frames UI, and a YouTube channel that I share content on Power BI as well as accessible design. Today's session, we're going to talk briefly about digital accessibility. We're going to understand WCAG, which is the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines and the PAW principles. And they're going to look into how to translate the WCAG into dashboard design and beyond, some practical tips, and then starting with this design principle of CRAP. I'm sure everybody's going to remember. And then we're going to wrap up the session. So let's get started with a bit of stats. There are about over 1 billion people globally living with some form of disability, and that accounts for about 16% of the world's population, according to the World Health Organization. Digital accessibility aims to make websites, apps, and other digital experiences usable for everyone. And by making digital products accessible, including dashboards or any other digital application, we ensure access to all, so everybody, regardless of abilities, disabilities, and circumstances, will have access to information and services. We promote inclusivity. We're giving equal opportunities, and it also help us to comply with laws. So there are regulations around the world that kind of imposes digital accessibility. And accessibility also enhances the user experience for everybody. So you will naturally design better and more user-friendly digital interfaces. So let's talk about the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, which is known as WCAG, and the PAW principles. So the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, which is known for short as WCAG, are globally recognized standards, and it was designed to make digital content accessible to people with disabilities. And it was developed by the World Wide Web Consortium. WCAG 2.2 is the most recent version. It's been used since October 2023, but the version 3.0, the draft for the version 3.0 is already available on their website, although there is no estimate when it's going to be enforced. On the current version, there are 13 guidelines across 4 principles, which are known as PAW. There are in total 87 success criteria and 3 levels of compliance. Although there are 87 success criteria, not all of them are applicable because these were initially developed for website development and software development. And the levels of compliance are A, AA, and AAA. So let's understand what is these PAW principles I've been talking about. So first we have P for perceivable, means that users should be able to recognize and use services and tools through one or more of their senses. So if you think about, for example, use of captions for videos. And then we have operable, where the user interface components and navigation must be operable using various input methods, and that includes a keyboard. Then we have U for understandable, where the digital content and interfaces are easy to read. They're also predictable in behavior, and they're designed to help users to avoid and to recover from errors. And finally, we have robust, where content must be robust enough to be interpreted in a reliable way by assistive technologies, and that includes screen readers. In terms of legal levels of compliance, we have level A, which addresses the most basic accessibility features and is suitable for some and not all the others. Level AA addresses the most common barriers for users, and it aims to make content accessible to a wider range of people. And level AAA addresses the highest level of accessibility, providing the most inclusive experience for users, including those with significant disabilities. Level AA is the most commonly legally mandated because it addresses a wide range of accessibilities challenges as well. It's too practical to implement. So in the UK, in the US, when you look into what is required, it is the level AA. Now that I talk about the principles, they cannot be very clear what do they mean when we're not talking about website development. So I kind of created some sort of translation into what it would be about. I say dashboard design, but it can be applicable to any Power Platform interface. So in terms of making the content perceivable, it means that our digital interfaces should be easy to see and read. They should use clear text, strong color contrast, and alternative text for visuals, so everybody, including those that rely on screen readers, can access information. To make our content operable, that means that our users should be able to navigate and interact with the digital interfaces using a keyboard. So that is the most common, which it is compatible by default. And we have to make sure that all the elements are compatible to keyboard navigation, for example, and there are no traps. So if you get into a menu that's got a drop-down list, you have to be able to, all users should be able to get out of that, and involves setting up the correct tab order. And then in terms of making the content understandable, it means that the layout and the behavior should be predictable and easy to follow. So we should use plain language, we use consistent icons, and add additional information so users don't get confused or stuck, so they know how to use it as well. And finally, in terms of making content robust, it means that our content should be compatible across devices, browsers, and assistive technologies. And this means that we need to design well-structured visuals or content with clear labels, and we should test the functionality in different environments. So if you use, that could be, for example, I'm going to test in a desktop as well on a smaller screen, for example. So here are some practical tips how we can make sure at least we get started comply with the POOL principles. So first we have here white space. So less is definitely more. So white space refers to the empty areas between the elements, and that prevents our digital interfaces from feeling overwhelming. So white space gives breathing room, and it means that you need to have more space in your screen. And to make effective use of that, we don't add too many elements. We don't put everything that we can think of in the same page. So it's not because we can add 20 different elements that we should. So when we naturally remove clutter, it's going to be easier to understand what the interface is about. So here, the next one, it's kind of about arranging the visuals in a logical reading order. So if you look here, how I designed this page, I created levels of importance. I based on information hierarchy. So my first level of importance, I added just the main KPI, so the main information that I have on this page. My second level of information, it is elements that may help explaining the KPIs. And then my third level of importance, it is a more detailed, more granular information. So if you have tables or anything that's got more details, that it's not usually what we first look. So when we make effective use of visual hierarchy, which is this, as well as eye scanning patterns. So the way that we, at least in Western countries, how we read from the left to the right, from the top to the bottom. And the Z scanning pattern, which is got on this image on the right, that is it kind of follows that pattern of how we naturally look to a screen. So if we place most important informations across those paths, it means that the users will not miss it. They will be more accessible and they will stand out more. Now, in terms of color contrast ratio, so we should aim to have a high contrast between text and background because that will significantly improve readability. So these are the color contrast ratio required from WCAG, and we should aim for at least the level of compliance AA. And for level of compliance AA, the body text against the background should have a color contrast ratio of 4.5 to 1. If you have a large scale text, which is above 18 points, or if in bold above 14 points, the contrast ratio should be of 3 to 1. And even if you have non-text elements, that includes icons or colors used if you have, for example, visualizations, they also need to have a contrast against the background of at least 3 to 1. So this is an example of, you may think it looks sleek, the one on the top, that you have really low contrast, but in reality, that you're not making it very user-friendly, not only in terms of accessibility, but even if you are in an environment with poor lighting conditions, or if your screen is too bright or something like that, you're not going to help your user. Your user is going to squint their eyes and struggle to understand. Next, it's about using clear fonts. So legibility refers to distinguishing features of different characters in a font. We have two main family fonts, which is sans font, which includes a decorative stroke on the end. So you can see here the example on the left, Times New Roman is an example of serif. And we have sans serif, which is a cleaner and more modern style of font without these decorative small projecting lines that the serif has got. And you can see here that sans serifs are better for legibility and accessibility because of their clean and simple shapes. But we also have to consider that even within the sans serif family, there are some issues with character differentiation. So I have here two font types from sans serif. So we have Verdana and Arial, and we can see here how the uppercase I and lowercase l, they look the same when we use Arial, which is a sans serif font. So we have to think about when we're choosing the font, do we have clear differentiation between the different characters? And I can see my son trying to read. So he got books from school and he really struggles to see what is I, L, 1, and he's neurodivergent. So he really struggles with that. And for me, it's really frustrating, right? Sometimes I message the teachers, can we just make this a bit more clear? But that's how the textbooks are for children. In terms of font size, we should consider larger text because that will reduce the eye strain and help our users to quickly recognize words. We should try to use fonts above 12 points. And as we increase our canvas size, we should also increase the font size. So even though you were allowed to use a very small font size, it doesn't mean you should. So if you squint your eyes, your users will as well. And then you come back to, if you're trying to visualize the interface in a smaller screen, it will cause a lot of problem. Next is consistency. That's where the visual elements, interactions, data representations should follow a predictable and uniform pattern across all views, all pages. So where you place your titles, your page navigations, the way that you structure, color, iconography, everything, it doesn't have to change. When we keep consistent, the amount of effort that our users would have to understand the visuals or the interface will be much less. So you're going to reduce the amount of effort, and they're going to spend more time actually interacting with the interfaces other than trying to figure out how to use them. Next one is very important as well, which is ensuring effective keyboard navigation. So Microsoft applications, they are compatible with keyboard navigation by default. And we have to remember that not all users rely on a mouse. And effective navigation, keyboard navigation, allow users to interact with the interfaces more effectively, which will enhance accessibility. And then, although it is compatible by default, as developers, we have to keep in mind, we have to think about setting the tab order. So a clear tab order will match the visual layout. So as you navigate your page using the tab key, you're going to consume the report the same order there is intended to the user to consume. So you have to manually, at least in Power BI, we have to manually check the tab order. So as you can see here, and then if it's not following the right order, we have to manually click and move around using the arrows on the interface. So that is very important, especially if your user also relies on screen readers. So next is supporting screen readers, which is also compatible by default. But as developers, we have to ensure that we use alternative text. We have to provide meaningful descriptions of images, which will aid screen readers in conveying content. And then when we have complex images, which includes data visualizations, for instance, we have to add a more detailed alternative text. And I know that in Power BI, we can type in the alternative text. I also looked at options also available in Power App. We can also, so if we type in, there is a limit of 250 characters, as we can use, we can create a measure using DAX. And I think we can also do something similar in Power App. So when we create that, there is no limit in number of characters, and it is a more dynamic alternative text. So it can, if you have filters or anything like that, it will dynamically change according to the selection. And as well, if there are changes that may occur over month, you don't need to worry, because it will dynamically change according to the information. In terms of tooltips and accessible alternatives, so tooltips are great to add context without adding a lot of clutter. So that's the option when you hover over and you have additional information. Although they're not very good with screen readers, I think I tested. It works if you know that the button is there and you hover over. I tested with narrator. But if you don't know that it's there, it will not read. So the way to overcome that is by adding alternative text on that button. That's what I did here. The same information that is on the hover is on the box for alternative text. So everybody will have access to that information. Now, it can be quite overwhelming to remember everything. I mean, I've been working with these now for nearly 2 years, and it's kind of on the tip of my tongue, but it can be quite overwhelming to get started. So a good way is to use these key design principles that CRAP. They are very good, very effective when we're to design more user-friendly interfaces. So the first, we have contrast, where we should ensure that key elements stand out, aiming aiding users that may have color contrast or low visual low vision or any impairments about that. And it's not only going to aid them, but also going to make it easier for users to understand what is the most important. Next, we have repetition, which reinforces consistency and help our users to navigate and understand content more intuitively. Again, it's all about reducing the cognitive load, that is the effort required to understand how to operate an interface. And then we have alignment, which creates a logical flow, and that also reduces cognitive load and improves readability, especially for screen readers. And finally, we have proximity, where related items, you group related items together, making relationships between elements more clear, and that will help enhancing comprehension as well. So when we design using these four principles, we will improve aesthetics as well. It will lay a strong foundation for inclusive and user-friendly experiences. To wrap up, designing for accessibility ensures that all users can effectively interact with digital interfaces. Familiarity with the WCAG standards is crucial for ensuring compliance and enhancing usability for diverse audiences. And by applying practical techniques for creating inclusive reports, that will lead to a better engagement and understanding for all users. I have some content here that is more about accessibility, but they are more related to Power BI. The color contrast ratio one, though, it's applicable to any interface. So it's something that I go through even when I'm creating PowerPoint slides. Yes, that's it from me. So thank you very much. I'm just wondering if anyone has any question.
I've just got a quick one.
And I apologize. Oh, no, David, go ahead. You first.
No, you go ahead, Michael. Go on.
I apologize, Juliana, if you said this, but I'm actually really interested in when did you say that, how often this gets updated?
How often what, sorry?
How often these standards get updated?
There is no specific cycle. So I know that they are working on WCAG 3.0 and they're trying to make it more applicable to other digital interfaces. I also heard that they may change how the color contrast ratio is calculated because they currently use the luminescence method, but there is the APCA, which is more it better matches human perception. So I don't think there is a specific cycle. I think they continue to review when they feel that it's a good, okay, it's not only a draft. I think they will, but even when they say, okay, we have version 3.0, there is a time for you to adjust and comply with the newest version. And sometimes change, it's not everything that may change. So there are some criteria that at version 2.2, they're still the same as 2.1. It's just they will call a different version if there is any other, even if it's a smaller change, they will call it a different version, but it doesn't mean that everything changes.
Okay, all right. No, that's good because I just have a couple of folks that I even mentor that fits in this category. So I just was curious. So thank you very much. I really appreciate the presentation. Great job.
Thank you. It's a shame it's 30 minutes quite tight because you could spend hours just talking about how we can make better design interfaces. There is a lot we can do. And I always try to talk about accessibility, even if my session is about, I don't know, S-curves in Power BI, I always show at least color contrast and font size, which is, I think, is the easiest to get started and less overwhelming as developers.
Yeah, I've just got a quick question. Are there any tools you can use to run Power BI reports through to see if they meet the guidelines? I remember back in my web design days, you could run the W3C checker.
So there is, I think, I forgot her name, but she created something that you can do some checks in Power BI. I never used. What's her name? I forgot her name, but I can get back to you with that specifically. And there are other tools. So I just would like to be mindful if your whatever you interface any data that's sensitive, or you don't want it because of you want to protect the data.
Yeah.
There are interfaces that you can upload an image and see how it looks. For example, all in gray. You can check. You can do color blinding simulation, but I do not advise using that if it's sensitive information. I use the Adobe tools. They have a color wheel that help you calculating color contrast ratio and running a color blinding simulator. WebAIM also has got links that you can check. I think you may have an accessibility check in Power App. I don't think there is in Power BI yet. I think there is a lot we can do to make it easier for developers to test. Like if you go to PowerPoint, you have the accessibility checker, which is brilliant because it tells you exactly what you have to change. Or what's missing. So I hope that one day we're going to be at that level with Power BI as well.
Excellent, thank you, and thanks for your presentation. Really interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.